Learning the mimer. It's on PDF page 17. Vayomer mi sam peladam. I think we've learned this mimer before. It looks long, but it's actually because they redid the print, and it's actually quite a fascinating mimer, as all are. So,
do you know where Shimon is? He hasn't been here last time into.
He was traveling, but he came back before Shabbos, and I see that he was on a second ago, and then he must have jumped off. Maybe he'll jump back on because I got an email that he joined at about 2 minutes ago. So maybe he'll jump in a second. So it says, "Vayim Hashem, I love." So Moshe is complaining that his speech isn't good, and Hashem says, "Mi sam peladim." Who's that person? Who gives a person the power to speech? And we'll see what that means in the context of the content of the mimer. Oh, here's Reb Shimon. See, there you go. Shkoyach Reb Shimon for everything. We're learning the mimer, page 17. Mi sam peladim. So Moshe Rabainu says, I have speech impairment. So Hashem says, who gives a person the ability to speak? So we'll see what the Alter Rebbe explains, how this conversation, what is it about? So he says, Moshe says, I'm not a person of words. There's a reason why, because he has a hard speech impairment. He can't speak properly. What does Hashem answer Moshe? Misam Adam. The Alter Rebbe says it's all wondrous, it's difficult. Does Moshe not know this? That any ability or inability to do something, especially in communication, all comes from Hashem, and therefore, and if Hashem commands you to do something, it's not going to be an obstacle. Does Moshe not know who gives the ability of a person to speak? So the Alter Rebbe explains like this. Well, understand this based on an idea that says in Sefer HaTmuna. Sefer HaTmuna, it says in footnote 204, is Miyuchus Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. I believe was a Tana. So he writes in Sefer HaTmuna, Shezeha Oilam, our world, I mean the time and space that we're living in now, Ushmita Shnia is the second sabbatical. Well, Lefeneha, before this sabbatical that we're living in now, it was another 7, like a Shemitah is what? It's a sabbatical 7 years. So a seven times cycle, which in our time is, we know that the existence of the world is 7,000 years. So it's a 7,000 year Shemitah. So there was a Shemitah before. And there it was all about the attribute of Chesed. So the 7 Shemitahs correspond to the 7 Midos. We're the second Midah, which is Gevura, and there was a Midah before, there was an existence before, a Shemitah before, a sabbatical before, from the Midah of Chesed, like the first day of the week is also Chesed. Shemitah Da'achshav, our Shemitah, the 6,000 years of our existence, and the 7th year, which is called Chad Chorev, which is the time of Mashiach, or the next level of Mashiach, is Humi Midas Pachad, that's from Pachad, which is Gevura. Therefore, in our Shemitah, in our sabbatical, this is all from the Sefer HaTmuna. In our sabbatical, everything, its ways are hard, are difficult, are bad. Means there's a lot of din. What is where do we see the negative, so to say? Is the destruction of the first and second temple. But in this first sabbatical, doesn't say how long it was. I'm assuming it's also in a number of 7. That was an attribute of all chesed. Haisa here, it altered the Sefer Tmuna says Haisa avoida b'ifanacher was a whole other kind of avoda. The Gama Torah hay b'ifanacher. The Torah was a different Torah. Everything was good. Okay, so this is what Sefer Tmuna says, that there's a sabbatical before our sabbatical, and we're the second sabbatical, and it's all kasha and raw, bad and difficult, and from there we see, that's why we see the destruction of the first and second base of Mikdash.
Wait, can you break that down into the years of these 2 sabbaticals again? When were these times?
Well, we're going to see in a second the Alter Rebbe's opinion, which goes according to the Arizal. But just from the basic understanding from the Sefer Tmuna itself, there was a whole sabbatical before. It's not in a time space of our space. It means when the Torah starts, Bereshis bara Elokim es Hashemayim, the creation as we know it, first day of creation, is already in the second sabbatical. It's not a time and space of anything that's part of our existence. It was a whole nother existence. It was a whole nother existence.
So this whole time, all of history that we know of has been Gevurah.
Is the second Shemitah, is the second sabbatical, yes. And the first sabbatical, he says, was a different Torah. It was all Chesed. It was different. It was a different world. It was Boif and Acher. It doesn't say how long it was. I mean, a sabbatical by definition is 7.
Right,
So.
different Torah. I mean, this was before Sinai. I mean, what does it mean, a different Torah?
Before, I mean, our creation was based on Torah. God made a condition with creation that if the Jewish people accept Torah, the creation will continue. If the Jewish people had not accepted Torah, it says the world would cease to exist.
No, so I mean during the first sabbatical, before everything that we know.
That was another sabbatical.
What does it mean by it was another Torah? There was no Torah then.
They had also a system. Again, we don't know the details of the system, but they also had a time. They had a Torah that was given at some point of time, if they had time. I don't know how people looked at it. I mean, they're not giving.
But that would have. So it's saying that people existed before people existed. It's another word. I mean, according to anthropology, et cetera, science. It's humans have been existing for hundreds of thousands of years already, even before them, where there are other species.
It doesn't say there was humans. It wasn't our galaxy. It wasn't like there was this you're talking about within the space of what we're in now.
And then of course there are all of these, billions of galaxies that we now know about.
But all that is part
saying that there was another life in another galaxy that had Torah.
No, I don't think it's about another galaxy. I think it's not anything you could think of that's part of a system in a galaxy, out of a galaxy, for billions of miles away. All that's part of our Shemitah. This was another existence, a whole other creation. The same God that created Bereshis bara Elokim, and on the fifth day, he created.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah.
So we're going to see how the Alter Rebbe learns it, what it means, the Sefer Tmuna. There's an argument by the Kabbalist. Let's see. There's Kach Da Sefer Tmuna. This is what he tells us. He tells us two things. He tells us that there was a world before, and we're the second world. And a lot of the Mekubalim follow the opinion of Sefer Tmuna, and therefore they say Ladun Mizeh. They learn from this Shemuchrach, based on the system that there's a second sabbatical, means there has to be 7 sabbaticals, right? 7 sabbaticals make up a yovel. So they say V'achrav nimshechu Mekubal machronim Ladun Mizeh. They learn from this. Shmuchrach li is oid chamesh shmitas. There has to be another. Besides for ours being the second, there has to be an additional 5 to make up the 7 midos. Acha shmita zu. Kitzarach li is zayin shmitas connect zayin minas alyenis. Means even according to these Kabbalists, the manifestation of the Adam Kadmon hasn't changed because there's zayin midos, and zayin midos is a manifestation. God is loy v'loy l'midosav, but God is not defined by his midos, but within his, but for the level of God that created our world, we only created the second world based on the midah of Gvura. And they say, therefore, there has to be another 5 worlds because Hashem manifests within, from Adam Kadmon within 7 midas. And if there's 7 midas, and we're the second, so there has to be 5 more. But that's all the opinions of.
But the number of years would have been totally different in a different order.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. No, we don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know if it was 7. We know that we're a system of 7,000 years. Well, he's not just telling us something that's abstract for no reason. Alter Rebbe is going to explain to us how this affects Moshe Rabainu and how this affects Moshe Rabeinu's speech. So he says like this. So this is the opinion of most Kabbalists. Aval, however, Harizal Palagaza, the Harizal doesn't agree with all this. He says no. There is no such thing as another 5 sabbaticals. We're the second sabbatical. He's not arguing with the Sefer, because the Sefer Tmuna doesn't say there has to be 7 sabbaticals. The Sefer Tmuna says that there was a sabbatical before, and we're the second one. But it doesn't say anything about the other 5. They're learning from this. They're deducting. They're coming that there must be another 5 based on what he's saying.
Well, but 5 must be then the ones to come still.
But the Rizal doesn't agree. Rizal Palagazah. But Mashlam Dishtarchli is Heishmitas. Now we add to that. V'gam, and on top of this, that Rizal also argues about the first Shemitah. Masha oilam hazeh hu shmita shnia. This that we're saying that our world is the second shmita. Miyos desvirle gam kein kein. The Rizal agrees that we're the second shmita. L'chein pascha Torah bebeis. That's why the Torah starts with beis, bereshis, to tell us leimar shekar hoysa shmita achas. There was a shmita before this, and now we're talking about beis, bereshis. V'achshav hi shmita shnia. Al perish Rizal, the Rizal explains like this. The ein hakavana leimar. He's quoting the Rizal now. It doesn't mean to say shahaya oilam gashmi k'may oilam hazeh achshav, that there was a physical world like we are living in now. Im Shemayim va'aretz, that there was a heaven and earth, gashmi and physical. Doimim tzemei chai medaber, there was species of doimim tzemei chai medaber in this first sabbatical. The Rizal says that's not the way it is. Ki zeh lo yahayu rak b'shmita zu dafka levad. Only our world had this. Our shmita had all these part of creation. What was the shmita initially, the first one? That is the world of chaos, of Tayu. The seven kings of Tahu that died, meaning they broke. It was the Shviras HaKelim. There was a spiritual existence. Okay. The Indian shmita the Achshav. This is all the opinion of that Rizal. That was the world of chaos, the first shmita, and we're the world of fixing, correcting. The Rizal explains our world is the world of Tikun. Now he says an amazing thing. How does this have to do with Moshe Rabainu? So there were two souls. It doesn't say the Makar if this is the Alter Rebbe's Makar or if he's saying it from the Sefer Tmuna or from the Rizal. It says there's two souls. Mishmita Rishayna, from the first Shmita, from the world of chaos, that was in the first Shmita before the world of Tikun, the creation of Tikun. They were taken out of the first Shmita and brought into the second Shmita, which is the world of Tikun. And who are these two souls? Chanoch, Chanoch was one of the people that lived before the flood, and Moshe Rabainu. So Moshe Rabainu doesn't come from our world; he comes from another world. He comes from another Shmita. That's the first Shmita. As did Chanoch. Where's the proof? Where's the proof from this? He brings the proof.
And also, I mean, what about the whole story about how Moshe's mother was Yocheved and married to, the whole family story?
That's the body, but the soul was taken from another world. So he says, what's the proof?
The proof kind of goes into, these theorists that talk about alien worlds and aliens that were here before us. And
according to that Rizal, he says it's not a physical space. It was a ruchni. It was all a ruchnistic existence. But what we're going to see from here is that Moshe Rabainu in this world was conscious of that world. I mean, it's not like it was a subconscious part of Moshe. Consciously, he was part of that world. And therefore, the way he saw things in this world, he saw it from an outsider. It says, what is the proof? The Torah tells us by Chanoch and Bereshis, Vayishalech Chanoch Esalikim, Vayishalech Loimeshek Kfar Yishalech. Yishalech means that he walked in the past. What do you mean he walked in the past? He's living now. Loimeshek Kfar Yishalech Esalikim Shmita Aleph. He was ready someplace else in the first Shmita. V'chein b'Moshe, even by Moshe, this is the idea that Moshe Rabainu was taken from the water. That the Alter Rebbe learns what it means he was taken from the water. Not that he was taken only by Batya out of the Nile. The Hainu Mishmita Rishayna, which was Chesed. Chesed is water. He was taken out of the water of Chesed. Shahaisim B'chinas Chesed. Hanikra Maim. Umisham Mishisiyu L'Shmita L'Achshav. He was pulled out of that space into our space. Ve'ikri Ridasim Mazu Hashmita. And why did these two people come down to Chanoch and Moshe to our Shmita? It means even though they come from the world of Tayu, it was only through them that could be the Tikun that's needed in our Tikun requires Moshe Rabainu and Chanoch. They come from, it means this first world is a much higher world. They come from a very high rooted place. And therefore they're the ones who are able to inspire that we should make this world into a world of Tikun. They're much higher than the souls of our Shemitah. What does it mean higher? How do you define higher? What does it mean? More spiritual? They daven Shema Yisrael longer. They say the Shema Esrei for another hour. It's all about bittul. They're much more clear conscious of Hashem, and they're nullified to Hashem. Masher nimsa b'shmita than in our shmita. Means in the highest level of bittul you could think of our existence, they come from a much higher level. That's what Moshe says. Moshe says we're nothing. Moshe consciously felt the bittul of the world of the first shmita of Tayu. And like it says, Va'ish Moshe onav ma'oid. Torah tells us he's the most humble person existed. V'gamra, and also why did he say something else, which we don't understand what this means, because the Alter Rebbe just said that only 2 souls came down from the first Shemitah to the second Shemitah, Chanoch and Moshe. And here he says, he even saw greater people than him in the first Shemitah, like Chanoch, which we mentioned, but then he adds Lemach now, part of the story. So Lemach is also there. I'm not sure which Lemach this is. I think there was 2 Lemachs we have in the Torah, right? You have Lemach, the father of Noach, and we have Lemach, the father of Tuval Cain, or the grandfather, whatever. The one who killed Cain. Therefore, Yarda l'shmita zula sakram gamke. Also, these 2 souls, now we're adding Lemach and Chanoch, also came to help the world. Why? Chanoch was one of the people who lived before this flood. The world descended to a really low space, obviously, as we know by the story of how the Torah describes what was going on in the time before the flood. Like it says, Kate's kol basar lefana, God had enough. Kate's like God reached his limits with how people were behaving. And therefore, Chanoch came down. He fixed it. See, Chanoch, we don't find, Chanoch that he educated people, that he changed people. But he himself, being a tzaddik, he was able to fix the world on his own, seemingly. Had Chanoch not come down, we wouldn't have had a flood. We would have been destroyed. So by Chanoch coming down, he was able to fix it enough that we shouldn't go totally back to non-existence. That we should be a mabel, which was plan B, means a lesser of the 2, alars, and therefore the tarars, like the Alter Rebbe taught us in Shabbos Noach, that the mabel wasn't to destroy, because God wanted to destroy, could destroy in many ways. Was a mikvah, and in the mikvah, we got rid of a lot of the tumah, 99.9% of existence. But that was a tahara that the world continued with Noach and his family, and that was thanks to Chanoch. If not for Chanoch coming down here, we wouldn't have been in a situation of taru. We would have been totally nullified. And therefore, Noach and his family was in the teva. If not for Chanoch, the world would have been totally destroyed. No one would be left. That's Chanoch. So Chanoch came down. His tikun was to bring the world to a space that it's fixable through the mabel. Why did Moshe come down? Legal as Yisrael means the geula of the Bnei Yisrael had to come from someone like Moshe Rabainu, that was from another space. Not only was he a slave, that he grew up not in slavery, he grew up in Paro's house. He's literally from another space, another place. Only he could give the Torah. Now, so Moshe comes to the world of Torah, and he was brought on to the world of Tikun. He was humbled. The Alter Rebbe says. First, now we described his first level of humility came from his world that he was coming from, that he wasn't the greatest there. There were greater neshamas there that he was inspired by. So therefore, he was humble. And now he's going to go to the second level, that he was humbled by our world. Now,
where are we? Oh, yeah.
V'hinei, hefesh ben Torah l'tikun. You do Beit Chaim. So what is the difference between the 2 worlds? We learned many times that the ability to create images, a partsuf is an image, is by dimming the powers of the lights, that they should complement each other as opposed to be aggressively against each other. And if they complement each other together, the lights, like a pixel, create an image. But if each pixel is flashing its own color, it's not you can't see anything. Torah did not have partsufim, did not create images. Why? Each one of the 10 spheres is its own nikud, its own point, without any existence, without any complementing the next one. What does it mean, nikudas? He says, nikud is a chesed, boom, order, very much chesed. Nikud is a gevura, very much din, severity. We know that we have it broken down 7 times 7 times 7 is 100, right? We keep on breaking the midas down. 49 days of the Omer, 7 times 7. The 100, 10 times 10 is 100. So we know that the midas are broken up. There's chesed of gvur of chesed. So there's this skalus, this coexistence. But by the world of Teu, it's not like that. There was no pratim. It was just the Nakud itself, raw chesed, raw gvura, without any mellowing of it or without any defining it in a productive way. But Oirich v'Reichav, there was no length.
So is that go to this? Isn't that the story about how the first world was destroyed because the Sephirot were not interrelated?
Yeah, it's exactly. That's why that's why he says before the 7 kings of Tayu that died. What do you mean they died? That was the Shvir Sagelim, the breaking of the vessels.
So by
Actually,
7 kings and 7 Sephirot, it's talking
yeah,
about,
yeah.
or 7
We
7
mentioned
years.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
we mentioned that before. It says the Hainu Inin Zayin Malkin Kadmoin de Tohu Shemesu. The 7 kings of Tohu. Kadmoin means the original ones because they're mentioned before the 7 kings of Yaakov that died. So he says they weren't broken out in the width and length. They were just one general idea. Very precise. Zu chesed, zu gvura, this is kindness, this is severity. And there's another thing, that they were lined up separately. They weren't lined up in a way that could create a form. Like, and we know that Eitz Chaim has right, left, center. There was no right, left, center. It was just line. It was a straight line. Like the Alter Rebbe mentions many times, the difference between the nekuda, the vowel of shuruk, which is 3 dots going downwards, and segel, which is 2, 2, and 1, which helps. That's the chesed gvur tveres. So v'gam es spheres they were down one next up after the next, means separate. Shahayu, top of page 19. Nifradim zemiza, meaning they were totally separate one from the next. Mufradim zemiza. Shechesed hayu b'fnei atzmai, gvura b'fnei atzmai. Chesed was its own, gvura was its own. L'hayu miskalim zemiza, no interaction between the two of them. L'chein hayu rak nekudis, therefore they were just these nekudis. The hab hataya, he says it goes together. The fact that it's a nekuda is it doesn't expand. If it doesn't expand, there's no way for there to be scholarless. When you're very focused, you're very narrow-minded, right? A person, what do you say? A person's narrow-minded. You can't expand. Broaden your horizons a bit. There's tremendous commentary in the bottom, but that's not that's taken from places of other Maimorim that explain the Alter Rebbe's Maimer. We're just learning the original text. It goes Masha Enki Oil Matikun. That's all the world of chaos, but in the world of fixing. The whole point is that the spheros should create an image. If you put the lights together, you should see something, right? That's why the world of Teo are like letters that don't make words, but letters that make words are the same idea of parts. If it's the same, it's an idea different than an image.
It's phonetics that are not phonemics yet.
Exactly. So mechachma nivna parts of ava. So and chachma gives an image of a father, meaning Chachma is the father, the power of a father to create, to be a moilid. We've of Ksav is parts of Zav from the 6 sides, means top, bottom, right, north, east, west, and south, is the Midas, Zerampin, the small complexion. Shushin is Chalkul Spheres, Bispashis, the Prati Pratias. The point is that they get broken up into details. Pratim is details. 9 times 9, we're not counting Malchus, because Malchus is a receptacle. Tes pamim tes b'chol echad, and each one there's a roish toich soif. There's the roish, there's the head of the midah. There's the essence of the midah, the toch. There's the soif, the end of the midah. So there's sort of spaces and the sides. It's an expansion, and he says together if you do 9 times 9 with the hey chasadim, which chesed like is milk. Is a woman's milk is like chesed, therefore the body, the child grows. So the same thing, the hey chasadim is magdilim, that they grow the midas. The chesed makes it that they shouldn't be dormant, they should be productive. And if you add them all together, it comes from machevarim. That's the image of man. That's the 248 limbs. The gam nasi skalas is firsumizu, and they work together. They're not, the finger is connected, right? The kid's song, everything's connected. So everything's connected, so that the form of the Adam Kadmon is connected. But Moshe Shnei Bechinus Edom. We can understand this also, how the body functions, the soul and the body function together. Meaning, the 248 koiches hanefesh, powers of the soul. I mean, again, we've learned many times the power to see, the power to hear is not in the body. It's a combination. The vessel for seeing is the eye. The power to see is the soul. The soul sees through the eye. So the power, the koiches, I was just learning the Maimer of Yeshvata this year. The Rebbe goes into the details of when is energy called koach and when is energy called or, but we're not going to go into that right now. He calls Shiramach koiches, the 248 koiches of the soul, mislapshis v'ramachiv ariguf. They fit to the 248 parts of the body, meaning koach hariyah, the power to see in the soul, mislapshis is by, and it has to go into the eye. If it goes into the wrong aver, the wrong part of the body, neither of them function. The koach hashmiya, and the power to listen goes in the ozen, in the ear. The koach hamaisa, the mobility is in the yadayim, in the hands, and the power to walk, hiluch, is beraglaim, is in the feet. So that means the soul fits like a glove to the body. So here we see that because again he's building up that this is all the world of Tikun. Now, first of all, there's a breakup of the actual 248 powers of the soul, and in that there's kalim that can handle it, and Torah doesn't have anything. The or is too big, and the kalim are too small. Nothing fits. Now he says there's something else aside for the general, the specifics of the soul, the power to see, the power to hear, etc. There's the power hakoilel is called pratakoiches, that is the inclusive, has all, means it's aware and is in with control and part of all the specifics of the soul. That later these parts, when they fit to the soul, to the body, get divided. And is covering them from all sides, means that there's no way to get out of that general power. What is that? The thought of man goes into all parts of the body. It means that this is the idea of the power to see, the power to move. All that is included within the thought. It means that's the ratzon. Kinir ba'ala, like he says, like it's clear. Shakashar yikava b'tzipoiren, if you're gonna, hurt your nail, right? If you cut your nail or you burn it, ragloi of your foot, the nail of your foot, which is all the way at the bottom of your body. Targish take of hamachshava. You don't have to tell your soul or your brain that you just got hurt. You right away feel it. You step on a piece of glass, immediately you know. If there's a rock in your shoe, you know immediately. Is targish take of hamachshava? It's okay. Your thought right away recognizes the pain. So from there we see that there's something that's aware. There's the general system. It doesn't get divided. There's both the specifics and there's a general operator, which is the machshava, that knows what's going on in all the body equally. So too, in other times in Chassidus they focus on the ratzon, not the machshava. The machshava is just that is the keli for the ratzon. Means the machshava is not in the soul. The machshava is a levush of the soul. So what is the part of the soul that is that koila, that is all inclusive of all the parts of what's going on of the soul, the soul that's in the body, is the ratzon, the want, and that's why when the soul wants to do something, here he's calling it machshava. I wonder why. I think it is just for the level of awareness, that in the awareness of the body, it's in the machshava, but in the action of the soul, it's in the ratzon. It means to do something. Machshava just knows what's going on. The ratzon makes you do something, like you should walk here, pick up that, draw this. When you want to move your foot, it moves right away because it's all connected. When you think about moving your foot, so the thought, again, the thought I believe over here is the levush of the ratzon. It's about the ratzon. The part of the soul of it is the ratzon. Is the want, is that there's a ratzon in the foot to move, and therefore it moves. And it's encompassing. It's not enclosed in the foot, but it's from the outside that makes the foot operate. And this way we see it now, from going back, the way we understand it within a person. Now we understand the image of the direct light coming from Hashem. Just goes into different vessels, the vessels of the world of Atzilus or Bria, etc., and creates different images according to the level. Moichin Israelis, there's the intellect, there's the function. Israelis is the arms, and that's all the world of Tikun. He says in the parentheses, which is Shabi from the Tzemach Tzedek, it's not Yosher, it's round. So everything's round, and therefore it's not direct. It's not a system. That's like the machshava that's eagle, but everything is eagle. There's no round that surrounds a form. All right, let's skip the next parenthesis. He says, "V'hine Gimel." The fish should be Yosh, the Tikun is Chalkos, Virus, Bipratis, Bibchinis, Partsufim. Now, because the world of Tikun has everything in a structure, and the structure of images that's done through the system of the 10 spheros that complement each other and broke up into Pratim, therefore, there's something unique about the world of Tikun. Miley Yisera is something great that was not in the world of chaos. That what? That the world of Tohu was very nice, right? All these strong lights, but they had no connection. They were one on top of the next. Top of page 20. This is what it says in the Sefer Yetzirah, that not that the ability to have a connection between the beginning and end is in the parts of where everything complements each other. There's something that the bottom has that the top doesn't have. The Torah doesn't have that. There's no complementary one to the next. Because they created an image and they become one and they become dependent, even though traditionally you could say, yes, the brain is very important, but we're going to see soon, but the brain would just stay in one place. If a person wants to move, you need the feet. Again, you can learn from the person. Where's the seichel? The seichel, which is the neshama, the or, goes into the moach, which is the keli. That's the brain, is the place where a person uses their mind. Seemingly, of course, the brain is the most important of the koiches of the soul. And then later goes to Yadayim, which you could do more things. You could draw, you could write, mobility. To do handiwork, right? It's much less than what's in the brain, but you're still creating things or doing things. And then later, further than that, is the better glaim is your feet. Much lower. You can't do anything, you can't draw. You walk, you could kick, you could do. It's much more daimim. It's much more like a stone-like than chai. Then you could call the hands chai or at least sameach. But if you're going to value the strengths of the different parts of the body, before they go into the limbs, you'll come to the conclusion that your power to think, your power of seichel, of understanding, or to create ideas is much greater than the abilities of the soul that is before it goes into the body, where it's still not even doing anything yet. But the power is to do these things. We said before, the neshama has the power for the hand to create, or for the feet to move, for the brain to think. So that part, even before it goes into the body, and if you looked at it and you evaluated it from the soul's perspective, the part that's connected to seichel is much greater than the part that's connected to mobility or movement. It's much more internal. Who's the person? The person is what their mind is. But much greater than its ability to walk. Is much more external of the soul.
But they did different levels of the soul, like that are on the tree, map onto the tree. 3 different levels there, and then the 2 above, right? The transpersonal and the yeah.
No, he's saying it's all there, but he's saying, but if you wanted to say what is more important, what's more panimi, what more is, if you want to know who the person is, yeah, you have a lot of people. You could say that their whole. If you want to define them, what do you want to say? Who are these people? So he's a very strong person, or he's a very fast person, or very they draw very nicely. But you if you want to get deeper, who is the person? Is there what's going on inside them, the thinking or the feelings? But the ability to run, as important as it is, as great as it is, you can't compare it to.
But I mean, the different levels of soul, the nefesh, ruach, neshama, that are the different. The physical, the emotional, and the mental, right? But
you're still going to say that the mental is much stronger than the physical.
Okay, but that's there too. He doesn't mention that, though, but that's there too.
He's not going into that part, to the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. He's going into so he says.
Well, I just read because the word soul, the soul was mentioned. the concept of soul, but not the different levels, the kinds of souls.
He means it in a general as an all-inclusive package. He's not breaking down when he talks about Tanya, the difference between Machshava Div Maisa, which is the difference between Nefesh Ruach and Shama. So he says Amnam, however, I think maybe he gets into it in a second. He says Amnam, Kishnislabshu B'Kelim, but when they come into their vessels, meaning when they become functioning, then you will find there's something fantastic about the feet. When it becomes a functioning person, means soul and body, then you're going to see there's something about the feet that you don't have in the because when the soul is separate, nothing's happening. The soul is just it's its own entity. When it comes to the body, it has limitations, but it also has the ability to do things in a physical way. And then you see that there's something about the regel that's not in the foot, in the head. Why? The person stands through the feet. Pushes the person, moves the person. A brain alone won't go anywhere. You don't find this in the head at all. So what do we see? That not chilasa. This is what it means, that we connect the top to the end to the beginning. That what's is the head in some things is the bottom of something else, and what's the bottom of something else is the head of other things. The ability to think, yes, that's important in the brain. The ability to understand, that's the brain, or feel is in the heart. But the ability to move or to pick up something is only in the hands and the feet. There's something about the end that's not in the beginning. And only when it comes into the foot, when the nefesh, when the soul goes into the foot, then we see that power in the soul that we maybe didn't appreciate. Now we see what its function is and why we're dependent on it.
Then you have disabled people who write with their mouth and things like that.
Yeah. That's
or write with their feet, or
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, it's not. It's not. I mean, that's it's a disability. It's limiting. Banim shel yuvan. A hefresh bein igul de toyu liyesher de tikun. This explains the difference between the circles of toe, and the direct line of tikun. The sham b'toyu hayzeh dachazel, like we said, it was all one under the next. There was no image. There was no connecting the end to the beginning because everything was separate. But because there's proper vessels for the world of Tikun, and we have this parts of, because it's the midos get divided, the 7 midos or the 10 spheres get divided. When it goes into the kelim and it's properly creates a form of man, there's something unique about the feet that's not in the hands or in the brain. That when you say that there's the beginning and end are connected, and therefore you can't say really at the end of the day what is head and what is end, what is beginning, what is end, because each one contributes in its own way. Because there's something great about the end that's not in the beginning. Even gam came in mitzvahs. Here the Rebbe now brings it in tavoida. Same thing comes to mitzvahs. Like it says, like it says, Adam. This is the Torah of man. That Torah mitzvahs are connected to the system. There's something unique about maybe an actual mitzvah, an action mitzvah. It's even greater than Torah, which Torah is moach. It's thinking. It's much more internal. I just did something. What's the proof that there's something great about mitzvah ma'aseh over sometimes Torah? Because the halacha is if you have to accompany a dead person, so the mitzvah is you stop learning and you do it. Why? If learning is so important, why would you stop? Because there's something about doing the mitzvah that overrides the Torah. We also find if a person has to, now with the mitzvahs himself, he's showing that there's a difference. That if a person wanted to be involved in the mitzvah of achnasas kala, to help a kala get married, or a bride and groom get married, they wouldn't. If for whatever reason participating or helping a kala get married would get in the way of them saying properly Shema, you do that. It's brought down in Kabbalah. That it's brought down that when the two students came in, he said, he was able to smell from their garments. The garments represent the mitzvahs, that they did something great. And he's saying, even though Kriya Shema Yesh Yechudim Al Yainim, if you want to talk about mitzvahs, Kriya Shema is much more of an essential mitzvah, seemingly, because you unify, you do all these great things, saying Shema Yisrael, and here you just, theoretically, just giving money or whatever they were doing to help the Kala. We see also that sometimes an act of mitzvah, and you have a losa say, if you can't do it, but you have a mitzvah that there's a contradiction between what the Torah says you should do, or the Torah says you should not do. He's going to give an example in a second. We go with what you should do. For instance, Mila, Bitzaras. If a child has leprosy by their place of bris Mila, and you're not allowed to halachically cut off a tzaras, a person that gets leprosy, doesn't want to go to the Kohen, doesn't want to become tummy. So what does he or she do? Takes a knife, God forbid, and cuts it off and says, okay, I have no more leprosy. So you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take off the tzaras. But what happens if the tzaras is where the Mila is where the bris is? So maybe you shouldn't be able to do a bris. So you do it because the bris overrides the tzaras. The prohibition of cutting off the tzaras. Well, the same thing, shatnez and tzitzis. We have the famous limud that says that you're not allowed to have the mixing of different materials together of linen and wool. But when it comes to tzitzis, you do mix it. There is a mile in the action which is represented by the midos of netzach yisoid, which are levarmi gufay, outside the body, means outside the emotional system and the brain. They're considered the feet. It's greater than the chachmila, which is more in the head. Nevertheless, when it comes to, it's higher than Torah, it's higher than the spiritual mitzvahs. Sometimes it's not just now. He did two things. One thing is Torah mitzvahs. That sometimes we see mitzvahs are greater than Torah. In mitzvahs themselves, let's say Shema versus Hachnasas Kala. Shema, there's times that Hachnasas Kala overrides Shema. Mitzvahs asay, lo yisasay. We know that we learn in the next mimer that lo yisasay is Yud K and asay is Vav K. So the lo yisasay are the mitzvahs that can't even come down in a keli. The only way to bring them down is through avoidance. So seemingly losa say is greater, but when it comes to the mitzvah ma'isi, when you have to do a bris milah and the sras, the ma'isa goes over. When you have to wear shatnez, the tzitzis goes over. Now he says also within Jews themselves. Sometimes a simple Jew, hedyet, hamakayim a mitzvah ma'isius, that does just a simple mitzvah of action, without any intention. You stand in the street and put on film with someone. There's no, let's say they're lacking kavanas and not understanding the great sodas of Kabbalistic thinking is what you're supposed to have when you put on film. They do it because that's how they connect to Hashem. I mean, they're overriding all the details. It could be as far as God is concerned. That yes, the tzaddik has all the kavanas and all the asaidas, but when a simple yid goes and puts on tefillin and says, because that's how I connect to Hashem, I don't know any details, don't tell me about kavanas or asaidas, that could be more precious to Hashem than the mitzvah of a tzaddik. There's something to say about those who support Torah. Even though it's greater than the eyes of the community. I mean, the eyes of the community are the chachamim. Kanal, vimshal haregel, just like we said before, about sometimes the foot has something more unique than the hands or the brain than Rosh. Top page 21. Our rabbis teach us that a person who gives tzedakah in a hidden way without getting attention, fanfare, in ways is greater than Moshe Rabainu. Why? Moshe Rabainu gave Torah. I mean, you're going to compare Moshe Rabainu to someone who has great as this to give tzedakah b'seisah, but that's the way it works. Why? And why does all this work like that? That's only in our world, in the world of Tikun. Shesham nasa b'chinazu the not seifim, because it's all interconnected and interrelated, like you said, Sharna, and therefore there's what to say about the benefit of the feet and everything we said that's included in that. Because there's all these vessels, has the ability to show us. Because when it's in a kudah, all you see is the light, but when you break it down, you could sometimes realize that in the simple yid putting on tefillin is more important than the greatest tzaddik. But in the world of Tayu, there's these great light, small vessels, and you didn't see all of this. Didn't have this. Now he's going back to Moshe Rabainu. So now that we understand the difference in the two worlds, Moshe wasn't from our world. Moshe was from the first Shemitah, from the world of Tayu, even in the most positive way. He was taken to our world. And in our world, he came down in the world of Chacham. He saw it from the top of the perspective. He was able to see everything. He sees. the beginning. The Kachishara Moshe means he saw it, he understood it properly. He didn't understand it in the way of Havana. He understood it in the way of Riyah. When you see something, the absoluteness of it. He said, when he saw our world, when he saw everything the way it is from our world, in the world of Tikun, and he had understood and he appreciated how everything interrelates and how there's a benefit to the feet over the hand sometimes, or to the head. It was a chiddush to Moshe. He saw something he didn't understand. There was something from a different place. This is not where he comes from. It wasn't like that. He was overwhelmed in a positive way. And therefore he humbled himself. He humbled himself. He was humbled, recognizing this, even though the world of Tikkun is lower and there's the simple Jew, but the ability to interconnect and the ability for everything to be part of the story humbled Moshe. And he says, Shlachna bi'atishtach, why are you sending me? Send someone from the world of Tikkun. He appreciated the concept, the system of the world of Tikkun. He says, why would you send me? I'm from another place. I'm from a place that everyone's separate. Everything's different. Why would you send someone from my world? He comes from Tohu. Why not send someone from Tikkun? This is what he says. That his reasoning for saying that, he expressed it. I don't communicate right. What does that mean? He comes from another place, from the world of Tohu. With his great lights, and there's no Kalim. Kalim is one of the things of Kalim is the ability to communicate. So when you have too much light, right? When a person gets overwhelmed, excited, you can't articulate. You say, calm down. Calm down and express yourself. Why? Because the idea is in your head, and you can't articulate it in words. That's the word Moshe came from. You couldn't put the lights into the vessels. That stopped the communication. The light was too great to go into the vessels of his communication, of his speech. He didn't look at it and say, wow, I'm so smart, I'm so connected, that the light is so great that I can't even articulate it. To him, that was a chasaron. When he saw the world of Tikkun, he appreciated it to the extent that everything great about him turned out to be a chasaron, turned out to be a fault. Why can't I communicate? Why I have great light? Who cares? What's the benefit of that? It was a big chasaron for him. And he appreciated what Tikun had. That there was vessels that you could bring down the light. That was very wondrous and special to him. He appreciated it. Therefore he says, why would you send me? Send someone who has the power to communicate. What use is my great light if I can't communicate it? Send someone for the world of Tikkun. He appreciated what was in the world of Tikkun. Yes, it doesn't have the great lights, but it's not Saifim Tichlas, everything complements each other. This only works in the world of Tikkun. He didn't have this ability. But the very fact that he couldn't communicate was a problem because he still came from that world where there's great lights and small vessels. This is what he said. Therefore, he was humbled from every person in this world because it didn't make a difference to him how great his light was. Like the Alter Rebbe said before, that sometimes the person who puts on film simply is connecting, is giving more pleasure to the Eibishter than the person who has all the kavanas. And he says, he says, that's all Moshe's perspective. That Moshe being appreciating our system, but we appreciated Moshe. We saying, why can't he communicate? Not because there's nothing to say, because he has too much light. We'd rather have Moshe's too much light. We'll figure out how he communicates than having what Moshe wanted. Send someone who has less lights, but could talk nicely. The only reason why the vessel, the speech, couldn't communicate is because the lights were so great. Yeah, very nice. You want to send someone from the world of Tikkun. But that person could be a nice person and could give over a nice story and say something nice, but there's no real tochen there. It's not real. The substance is lacking. There's a lot of kalim. But nevertheless, Moshe said, you're right. I hear what you're saying, that you appreciate my great light. But he was caught on what the ability of the world of Tikkun was. So we're just finished. I'm going to say a little bit of the answer. this conversation Moshe and Hashem have a few times in the Torah. We've learned it already in Fa'aloischa when it comes to the giving the meat, right? And Moshe just doesn't. Moshe appreciates the emes, because Moshe is emes, the emes of it. And Hashem says, listen, don't get too caught up in the emes. It's about the functionality. And over here he says, Hashem answers, you're getting all caught up because you see it from the limitations that you have. If you throw your limitations on me, let me figure this out. I'll show how your great light can be communicated. Pirish, he says, what does Hashem tell to Moshe? Emes, you're right. Like I said, Moshe's emes. It's right. Your kalim are limited, and you can't bring down the great light. You don't have the vessels that are in the Tikun that could communicate, that if there's something to say, it will be said. That the beginning and end go together, that the feet complement the mouth, and the feet complement the brain. Because where you come from the world of Tayu, from the first Shemitah. You can't communicate because your lights are too great and your vessels are too small. Your great seichel can't come into the mouth. Where did these limitations come from? Who gives a power for a person to speak? He says, what's Adam? He says, Adam, he says, Benikut's komets. The word is lo Adam. And what is that a hint? That we're talking about who even started this whole system, the world of Tikun, the Adam Kadmon. When we say the word ma is bittul, which is 45. Adam is also the number value 45. That's where the system of the world of Tikun comes from. Who created that system? And the ability for the mouth to bring down the great light, like it says in the Priyatz Chaim, bracha. And for instance, when a person says a bracha, when you voice the bracha of the mitzvah, you're bringing down the higher light. It means there's two components of a mitzvah, right? When there's the mitzvah, the action, and there's the bracha. So the mitzvah is the internal light, but the external light, the makif light, the encompassing light, comes down through the bracha, through the mouth. By idea mitzvah atzim neshachar pnimi. So therefore we say that the makif, the power of the mouth, Hashem created that the mouth has an ability to bring down a great light. So in the world of Tikun, it's within range. And you're worried about that you're out of range. So I'll fix that I'll tweak that system. And because in general the mouth brings down a higher light. That's why it's a bracha. A bracha's great is an outside light, where the mitzvah is an inside light. And therefore sometimes when the light is too great, we don't say a bracha. And that's why he says, when it comes to do we make a bracha on our tefillin on their head, there's a machlokes between the Sfardim and the Ashkenazim. Do we make a special bracha for the tefillin shel rosh? What's the machlokes? What's the disagreement? Because the light that we bring down, the encompassing light that comes down with the mitzvah of tefillin shel rosh, is very big. Therefore, okay, in minig sfard we don't make a bracha because we feel that light is too great to even for the limitation, for the greatness of the power of the mouth to bring down a great light. The light is too great, like Moshe says, the light is too great that the mouth can't bring down. So therefore, tefillin shel rosh, we don't make a bracha by the Sfardim. The Svirlu, they say, she efshar, it's not possible. Lahamshech hamakav to bring it down, it's too great. However, the Ashkenazim, Svirlu, no, you can bring it down. So it's an argument. Therefore, the minig Ashkenaz is they make two brachas. Minig Sfarad is we make one bracha. Is akapanim? What do we see? The kliyapehu mamshech harmak. The power to bring down a greater light is the mouth. Moshe Rabainu was saying that even my light is too great for the mouth. I can't communicate. This is what Hashem tells Moshe. Mi sam pel adam. Claimer mi hitzel kliyapeh shu klish mamshech harmakiv mi hatzile ladam the Tikun. Who created that the power to bring down an encompassing light comes from the mouth is me. Right, the Eibishter. So he's going to make it that even your great light could come down through the mouth. The beginning of everything. The Orin Seif Baruch of the infinite light. From the source of all the encompassing and the internal lights. There's nothing that I can't do. I'm going to be with your mouth, that seemingly you come from a world with this great lights, you're still going to be able to communicate. Al derech, like the Ashkenazim who say the bracha and tefillin shel rosh. Pirush, even yes, you're right, from the truth, where you come from, the world of Tohu. You don't have right now the ability to communicate. The same God that created both the world of Tikun and Tohu. I could change things. That we're going to make it together. We're going to have the great light, like the Jewish people wanted the great light from Moshe. They didn't care that Moshe had a. They never complained. It's an amazing thing the Alter Rebbe is saying. The Jews never complained. The Jews never said to Moshe, "We can't understand what you're saying." Or who are you? Why don't you get someone who could talk better? Moshe always was self-conscious about it, but the Jews never complained because they understood Moshe's great light is the reason why he's not communicating. So we'd rather have the light. I don't need a smooth talker who's saying nothing. But the Abisha said, I'm going to bring both. Will have the great light. Like in the where Moshe comes from. You'll have the great vessels. You'll be able to use them out. And this is what it means. I'm going to be with your mouth. Even though, yes, where you come from, you're limited. You'll have the vessels of Tikun, that especially the mouth, which is the part of the body that could bring down the great makifim lights. You'll have both abilities or both uniquenesses. Just like we said before, that the feet give the benefit to the head also gives the benefit to the feet. And Moshe Rabainu is going to have both. He's going to have the head, he's going to have the great light, and he's going to be able to bring it down in communication. And come together. All right, we're going to stop here. But this is an amazing mimer, and just gives us a little understanding of what that whole conversation was all about. All right, everyone, Laila Tov and Shavua Tov.
You too. Thank you.